Today, we're going to explore why you're not actually lazy, it's just that most productivity advice is useless. Productivity has always been this really sought after thing, like if I follow these exact tips and tricks, well, I'll become more productive and live a happier life. Like if I do X, Y, Z amount of things, well then surely I'll become productive. Or if I follow this guru's advice, well then there's no doubt I'll triple my productivity. But I'm here to tell you that most productivity advice is plain old and it just won't work for the majority of the population. Here are just a few reasons of why productivity advice doesn't work. In a perfect world, we'd be able to follow advice like the Pomodoro technique and work in complete focus until the break. But most productivity advice doesn't consider distractions. Whether it be a text message from family or friends, your boss constantly nagging you, or working from home with your kids, life is full of distractions. And most of these distractions are unavoidable. There's the obvious, like turning your phone on Do Not Disturb and logging out of emails. But how do you avoid your boss asking you questions about your deadlines? You simply can't, and this is the reason why a lot of productivity advice doesn't work, is because it doesn't consider distractions are a leading cause of why people lose track of work or become unfocused. Another issue I have with productivity advice is that it doesn't take into consideration that you don't have like this picture perfect life. It doesn't take into account new parents who might only get 1 hour of sleep and just need to survive the day, let alone be this productive super being. It doesn't take into account someone struggling with mental health problems, and it doesn't take so many of life's complexities into account. Some individuals might be burnt out from their jobs, others might just simply hate their jobs, and some people are under financial stress which affects every single decision in their lives around working and making money. So if a guru is ever telling you that you're lazy and unproductive, I think it'd be funny to see how they'd manage in your shoes for like a day or two. Following on from this, whether someone is financially poor or time poor, most productivity advice doesn't consider this. I find that a lot of productivity advice is made as this like broad approach and like you have all the time in the world to be productive and get shit done, and it's like, come on, let's hustle. I think gurus also talk about people working 9 to 5 and talk about the hours after that, but they forget to mention that sometimes people take an hour to get to work. So with an hour each way of travel, that makes their days 8 to 6. And then on top of that, they might have to feed their kids, they might have to do dinner, they might have to feed their pets, they have all these chores to do. And then after all of that, they can finally get to their productive stuff, which is maybe a side hustle thing or making a bit of extra money. But their lives are already so full on and like jam-packed full of stuff that I think a lot of gurus forget that because they have someone doing it for them with an assistant, or they get someone to make their food for them, or I don't know, whatever it is. It's like they forget that people don't have time. They also forget that people work double shifts, people work on weekends, and people work late nights to make up for the rapidly rising living costs. And also, people are tired. Like, they forget that people are tired at the end of the day. Like, there's so much going on in the world right now that people are just exhausted and they get home and they're like, I don't want to do anything. And that's not laziness, that's just overwhelmed. A lot of this advice is also like, if you follow these exact steps, well then you become productive. But a lot of this advice just doesn't work for a neurodivergent person. I'm not going to delve too deeply into this topic because I'm not that educated on it enough and I don't want to spread like misinformation about it. But I think that a lot of productivity advice is just made for a more typical brain, and neurodivergent people's brains are just wired completely differently and they learn completely differently. So if you're neurodivergent and productivity advice doesn't work for you, even though you follow like all the steps for it, just know that you're not lazy, and it's like, it's not your fault that this advice doesn't work for you. Like, it was probably made for a more typical brain, and your brains are just wired a bit more differently to ours, but that's all right. Like, there's still advice out there that will work for you. And finally, there's never a finish line. It's like, as opposed to like running a marathon and crossing the line, there's nothing like that with productivity. And it's like, there's always ways to improve bit by bit each week. And it's like, that's good for the beginning, but you kind of cap off to a point and then you're kind of just competing with yourself and like competing with yourself week by week. Like I've done it before. I pushed this toxic productivity cycle on myself where I was like, this is enough. I need to do more. And then you just burn out to the point where you're like, fuck this, I can't be bothered fucking working, doing this anymore. And that's what I hate about productivity, is that it's always like more. Like I should sleep less and I should do this and I should stop talking to people because they're distracting me from my main goal. And it's like, we're humans, what the fuck are we doing? A lot of this advice also talks about restricting things and cutting things out of your life. And if it's not adding value, then what's the point in doing it? And I think that this is such a toxic way to go around life. It's like I've seen gurus talk about cutting out TV and not watching movies because if every waking minute of their lives isn't productive, then they're somehow wasting it. But I think that that's just a load of bullshit, and you need to learn that it's okay to do nothing. I like to go with the flow of the day. Like some days I might wake up feeling like absolute shit, like dog shit. I'm like, you know, I don't want to do anything today, and I don't. So like, I'll still go to work, but I won't do any like let's just say YouTube stuff. Like I won't do any YouTube stuff for the day. But some days I might wake up feeling awesome and energized, and like I'll still go to work, and then I come home, and if I'm still feeling good, well then I'll do some more side hustle-y stuff. A really good tip I learned from this YouTuber named Struthless is to create a bare minimum and a good day list. So you have to create two separate lists. A bare minimum list is a list that just keeps your life plodding onwards. So this is just things, daily tasks that just keep your life plodding onwards. So it could be like cleaning the kitchen, cleaning my bedroom, like having a shower, brushing my teeth twice a day, and like so on. And the good day list will be like going to the gym, or like spending 2 hours on this side hustle thing like I want to do, or like doing 2 hours in this business I always wanted to start. And what I really like about the two separate lists is that it will eliminate the feeling of guilt for not being productive 24/7, and will also show you that you probably already have a lot on your plate. So treat yourself to a bit of compassion. Next, adapt the productivity tips to your needs and take away the main principle. And what I like to do is look at the productivity advice as like a whole and take away the main principles of it. So like with the Pomodoro method, it goes, you need to be working, but also taking regular breaks. So it shows me to become my most productive self, I actually need to be taking more regular breaks as opposed to working for longer, like working for hours and only taking short breaks. Like I need to be taking longer breaks to be my most productive self. Don't get me wrong, I've created like productivity videos and I will continue to do so, but I'm slowly learning that like I have to more target it to a select group of people as opposed to saying like it'll work for everyone, because I'm learning that it simply won't work for everyone because everyone's brains work differently. So next time you're lacking in motivation with productivity, I just want you to remind yourself that you're a human being and not like a robot or like this productivity machine. And I just want you to remind yourself that like you're not lazy. Some advice just will never work for you. You don't have to be constantly doing something or like in a constant state of productiveness to be considered worthy. There's so much more to life than just productivity, and you shouldn't base your worth on the amount of work you complete. Be kind to yourself, give yourself some breaks, and realize that you don't have to be this constantly like excelling human being to live a happy and fulfilling life. I think that you should just listen to your own body and mind and take into consideration how you feel, not what productivity gurus are telling you to do, because you know yourself best.